There's this old proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's the thread that twines our Exceptional Minds with RoboKind podcast. We want to connect you with the voices, the people, the movements, the work that's happening to promote, inspire, and achieve inclusive and celebratory moments for all. I'm Brian Baggs, CEO of RoboKind. Welcome to our episode. In this episode of Exceptional Minds with RoboKind, I'm super excited and honored that we get to host Dr. Charla DeLeo, the Special Education Coordinator at Clair County Schools in Alabama. With over 13 years of experience in special education, Dr. DeLeo is a passionate advocate for students' rights and supporting teachers, and has served as the former president of the Council of Administrators of Special Education, CASE. She's known for her candid approach and unwavering commitment to doing what's best. Dr. DeLeo's going to share her journey today, her insights into effective advocacy and supports, and strategies for fostering inclusive educational environments. Charla, welcome to the show. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, I'm glad you're here. And for some of you may be
Me
listening
too.
to this on audio, I get to see Charla. She's come in from her Spedivan. Charla, let's
This
start
is
there. What,
Spedivan.
what is this? Where are you?
Listen, I am in the very large metropolis of Odenville, sitting outside of a quick bite to eat called Charlie's Barbecue, which is wonderful, might I add. If anybody is actually in Alabama and traveling through, don't be afraid of gas station food if you're in the middle of anywhere in St. Clair County, because chances are it's the best. There are also some
Yeah.
fine dining establishments here too. However, aside from that little brief commercial, I'm in Spedivan. Spedivan is my board vehicle, and I just have to nickname everything. I'm like, oh, no, that's Spedivan. We're actually about to move
Yeah.
into something called the Little Sped Schoolhouse. That's what I'm toying with right now. It's, a play on the Little Red Schoolhouse, but everything has to have a nickname. It's Alabama.
Well, I love it. I love it. And so, one, I'm feeling that I'm a little hungry and wish I was outside getting some
Also,
barbecue. Maybe I'll do that right after this. But two, I love Spedivan, and I feel like that's kind of par for the course for a lot of our listeners, like often going
mm-hmm.
from one place to the next and
Oh, it
finding little
never
nooks,
stops.
right? Yeah.
Never
And you got
stops.
a pretty large district square mileage, right? So you've got a lot of
Yes.
different places you have to go show up, right?
Yes. From end to end, about 40 miles. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
And it really just depends on which way you're going. We actually have two major highways that bisect, and we're in between two major interstates. So
Yeah.
lots of area, lots of rural area. We have lots of city areas. I'm currently in one of the rural areas right now that's actually situated in the middle of the county.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you. So we've got some questions, and the whole idea here is that we're trying to create spaces for people to get insights into how others are practicing the craft and leading the way to provide inspiration and collaboration. And so I'm going to jump into some of these questions, Charla. I'm so
Okay.
excited that you're here. I'm Spedivan, right outside a good little barbecue joint. Okay.
That's right.
All right. So my first question is like, what inspired you to pursue a career in special education in the first place? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. What inspired me was
Yeah.
really not so much an inspiration, but more of a divination. The Lord kind of said, "You will do," and I did. I actually started out my career as an educator teaching English in the high school setting, and then thought I would end up as a counselor, and ended up going back into administration because one of the central office employees at the time said, "We're going to combine schools. I'm going to be the principal and you're going to be my assistant. So you have to go back and you have 8 months to go get your degree in that." So I went and got that certification as well, because I was like, yes, sir. Of course I
Yeah.
will. And from there, the plan was always to move me up to the district level so that I could take over special education. Now, while I didn't have that background, I did have expertise in that area, because Well, of course, my family has always been involved in education, and I had experience in that respect. So I really was a novice in all senses of the word when I started. My thing was, I'm here to help people. And I've never lost sight of that. And because I like to help, it was an easy translation because that's really what special ed is, right? Extra help. Isn't that what we
Mhm.
always hear? And while I
Yep.
know that that's not the case now, and while I'm a person who advocates for the fact that that's not the case, in that same respect, some of that is still true because what we're all here to do is really help the kids. And since I'm a person who gets her gratification from that help and assistance to others, that was really crucial to me. Like my career trajectory became so focused that I mean, I get teased a lot for being, oh, well, you're like the queen of special ed in Alabama. No,
Yeah.
no, I wouldn't say I'm the queen of anything except for, I don't know, maybe Spedivan.
Yeah, I was gonna say Spedivan might make sense. That's so interesting. So, like in this podcast and in my life, you get to ask, so many questions, and so
Yeah,
often the case is some version of I saw a need, and next thing you know, I looked back, and this need that I saw that I responded to has been a career. And oftentimes you talk about divination, right? There's lots of affirmation that comes along the way that says, you
right.
know what, this is my spot, and this is where I need to cultivate what's in front of me, and I don't know if it chose me or I chose it, but here I am, and this is the work that I do, you know?
Oh, that's correct. When I was
So,
working on my counseling degree, I had an administrator who told me, when you decide to stop mocking God and become an administrator, you'll do more counseling in that respect than you ever could have as an actual counselor. And he was every bit right, but I didn't see it at the time. I actually thought that that was kind of an offensive remark to make. It's like, that's really mighty brazen
yeah,
of you to
that's
say
so
such,
interesting.
sir, but very true.
I know. Yeah, and I think that I can't tell you how many folks that I've talked to. And so I obviously, full disclosure to our listeners, you probably know already, I'm CEO of RoboKind. But in
Right.
working in even my role, I've talked to lots of other leaders, and they said, probably more so than an MBA or a master's in special education, I should have spent more time in counseling because, boy, that sure feels like what I do every day, getting all the parties to come together, work together to get good work done. And that counseling would have been real helpful, you know? So,
Oh, correct. And it absolutely has been. I mean, that's about half the
yeah.
battle. I used to say that an
Yeah.
untitled job that I have was PR, but it really is it's public relations. It's not just the perception. You have to make sure that everybody has that perception and that they also enact those relationships that are perceived and that
Oh,
perception
yeah.
keeps being the good one that you want it to be.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal. Like, and that's part of like the education and the bringing people along and helping them see that. So that kind of leads
Right.
into one of the next questions that I wanted to ask you. So, as the former president of CASE, how did your leadership influence some of the policies and practices? And I'm sure some of that was equipping and informing and engaging folks, but talk to me about some of that when you were in your leadership role with CASE, of how that helped like influence some of your initiatives that you still kind of follow today.
So I actually became involved with Allocase because two of my friends said, you have to come and join because people listen to you. And I thought, people listen to me. What do you? But in that respect, they do, but only because I understand what true PR is all about, like we just talked about. I
Hmm.
have my first foray into that was around 2015 when we started talking about needing more preschool funding within the state.
Sure.
And at the time, we were expending as a whole, in addition to, now this is not our first class pre-Ks, but just our special education pre-Ks. The entirety of our state was spending $23 million, and we were only given 1.6. So that
Wow.
1.6 divided by all of our counties across the state was just not sufficient. And so from there, I kind of just became the voice. People would come and express their concerns to me, and that would be directors and everything else. And so I think I just kind of slid into the leadership role because, like you said, there was a need, and I'm not a person who likes to be contentious, but I will get the point across. I will be matter of fact, and I will try to make it so that everybody wins on all sides, because that's the part of agreements that people don't understand, is that we're all supposed to be in them, all of us. And
Yeah,
if we can have that bipartisanship, then and so I'm usually able to make those things happen. Now, there are times when that's not the case, but for the most part, I've been able to do that. And so it just
yeah, I
kind of
get that.
became a thing for me.
I get that. There's some versions of this out there where people say if you see something, do something, and it's also true that if you see something, say something, and some of those
Yes.
coming together, kind of what's required, right, in order to move things forward and get them better and to create those win-wins where all sides can walk away
Right.
on the betterment on the backside, right? That's a big part of
Well,
this.
right. One of the current things that is really a hot topic in Alabama, and I don't understand why it's a hot topic unless we're just talking about money, and I don't think that's the case. But one of the current things we're working with is the way in which we handle due process. None of us wants to go against IDEA. None of us wants to impede participation on the parents' part, but there has to be a better way, because a lot of times, even as a coordinator in a county this large, and even with my kind of personality where I want to make sure that I'm heard and seen across the county, and I do give out my personal cell phone number and literally will answer the phone
Yeah,
in the middle of the night, and probably will still, even in this day and age, drive all the way across the county just to change your child's diaper if I think that you need it, because I think you do what's required. And if they had somebody else to call, they wouldn't call me. Even in that
yeah,
kind of realm, there are people who have issues that they feel like they've not been heard, and I know nothing about it. And so if you're
yeah.
doing all that you can, like I am, and then that is still the case, and there's an issue, and we need to try to figure out how to be more proactive in that respect. So I don't mind working with even those advocate attorneys, and you do what you have to do, and you adapt however you have to adapt. We expect our special education students to do that, so why wouldn't I expect myself to do it? Why wouldn't I expect my colleagues to do it? And if I have
Yeah,
imparted any of that on somebody else, then I'm happy.
it's so good, because what is so often the case is that we think about things as winners and losers. And
Yeah.
the reality is that we don't have to fall into that dichotomy, right? We
No.
don't want our family to lose at the expense of our teachers, and we don't want our
Right.
teachers to lose at the expense of our families. What we really need is someone calling us into that third way, which it sounds like you're a big practitioner of saying, well, what's the best for what we are and what we can do? We can do this together. And it doesn't matter if you're an attorney advocate or a family member or a
Correct.
teacher or whatever, right? It's how do we put this
Mm-hmm.
together? Let's focus on the broad set of wins, not on somebody
Mm-hmm.
winning and someone losing. We can do better
I,
ways.
I agree. I mean, there's give and take in every kind of relationship, and there's always a happy medium. I have
Yeah,
no qualms about mediation and being such a
yeah,
mediator, and I just think that's necessary
yeah,
in all aspects of life and within what I
yeah,
do.
yeah. I mean that might preach in personal relationships and school relationships and that might
It
just be
it
just
just
about everywhere.
does.
Yeah.
It does.
Uh,
Well, and that's the thing. If you're pragmatic and you have common sense,
Yeah, I know. That's definitely a value, maybe even a virtue, right? Common sense and
definitely.
pragmatic, right? Yeah. So, any other kind of like significant challenges that you kind of get exposed to with some of your role that um, maybe other practitioners in the space may relate to?
Oh,
What are some of those challenges, and what have you found is like a reward for getting through those and getting to a better spot?
oh, now are we talking about a personal reward? Because if we're talking about a personal reward, I'm getting a purse. If I have done my job exceptionally well, I'm going to reward myself with a nice Louis Vuitton handbag. I am partial to them. I do have others, but those are considered lesser than. I do understand that some of them are far more expensive than I should be paying. However, that's okay. That and going
Yeah.
to Disney two stress relief places for me. But if we're
Yeah,
talking
I
about
get
somebody
that.
else, like the rewards and well, everybody's got to have their vice, and
Oh, I get it.
I
I get
don't
it.
drink. I will be honest though, I do take 150 milligrams of Zoloft every single day, and I'm quite happy for it. That is a pill I will
Well,
not do without. I would sacrifice blood pressure before I would that one. So,
yeah,
but now pragmatically for our kids, it goes back to, you've got to make sure that everybody's taken care of. You want to make sure that every single person is getting exactly what they need. And so that, in terms of trying to figure out what my teachers need, I'm going to always try to mitigate their circumstances too, just like I will every student's. If I know that they've got several high needs kids, then we're going to lessen that caseload. I'm going to go in and offer support or send one of our support staff out to help for the time being. And sometimes it's just to get you through a crunch period. All of those things I'm there for, and I'm open to suggestions at all time. And I think because I'm open to suggestions at all times, I think that's why people really are receptive to what I have to say, and they're willing to do the work because they see that I will come in and do the same thing. In previous districts, it's been me and me for it, and I was the one person shop for special education. And while that taught me a lot, and while I was able to go out and do things personally, the thing that it did best for me was show that I was willing to do any task and that nothing was so menial that I wouldn't do it. I don't have a problem changing diapers. I don't have a problem going in and being with those behavior kids. If there's a behavior intervention strategy that somebody thinks isn't working, I'm going to go try it out myself, because I know I'll try to implement it with fidelity. And at least then they can't say, well, you never were in there and worked with a child. So I think it's
yeah,
about assessing the situation and seeing what you need. But in terms of what things am I dealing
yeah,
with, I like to say that I every Sunday I'm contemplating what fresh hell could be this week, because that is what it is. It is all fresh hell.
yeah,
There's not a
yeah,
cookie cutter out there for any one of our kids anymore. I don't know that there ever was, but I feel like there may have been when I was in school, or maybe it was just me as a child thinking that. But there's no such thing as a cookie cutter anymore. Every single student needs an individualized education plan. They may not require special services, but they need that individual plan. Whether they're gen ed or whether they're special ed in nature doesn't really matter anymore. So it is, it's something new every day, and I just continue to build on what we have all collectively learned and learn to apply, and then you go from there. The support
yeah.
network, I
That's
would say, for us is it's crucial to have regional meetings with all your surrounding uh, counties or districts of any kind. It's crucial to go to the state meetings and to find out what's happening across the board. You do figure out that you're not alone, but you also figure out that there's no one that has all the answers, and that's why there's a real need for an individualized education plan team. That IEP team is important because nobody has the answer.
Charla, I imagine that people are going to go back and rewind and hear that last minute or two from you. There are so many nuggets in that that I'm going to go back and listen to too.
Oh,
Starting with like, hey, in this world where we're constantly asked to focus on helping others, it's okay to look in the mirror sometimes and say, what do we
yeah.
need? And so I loved the comments about Disney and finding the purse and everything else.
Yes,
Like, look, part of our solution is taking care of ourselves so that we can continue to be that vessel out in all those places. Someone's going to hear that
that's
and be
right.
like, you know what, I need that. And then I think one of the other things when we talk about our own mental health is embracing some realism. And your version of Sunday scaries that you talk about,
Yes,
in some ways, is a coping mechanism that prepares you that says, this week is going to be hard. I am going to face challenges, but I can bring a creative, rested self into this moment to solve them. I
right.
think the tension comes when we keep expecting that it's going to be, Skittles and rainbows and Care Bears, and then we walk into some
Yes,
sort of hell, right? Like, but if we have that realism, it
exactly.
comes. Yeah. And then I
Exactly.
love this last little bit too. Yeah, you
Oh,
beat
I
team. Sorry,
agree.
I'll say this too. Like in the meat of the team, and there's no cookie cutter. Like all that stuff. Like people are gonna come back, they're gonna listen, they're gonna play that again, be like, all right, that preaches. I need to hear that. I need to share that with somebody else. Those are some nuggets, Charlie. I loved them.
Listen, I'm originally from Clay County. We're no stranger to those colloquialistic phrases that become catchy. We have some
Love them. I
horrible
love them.
ones too, but now that, the old adages are true, and there was a reason that we have a whole entire books and then they're still included within our literature is because they're very poignant and they're purposeful for today. That's the entire reason for the book of Proverbs. It's so that you can have
Yeah,
something to reflect on. But you have to be open and honest about everything, or nothing is going to get done correctly. Nothing. You won't feel good about it. Nothing will be done to fidelity. If you have open and honest conversations about everything, then nothing can be wrong. And so
yeah,
when I used to tell people, "Oh, it's fine, it's fine," sometimes I was just using that as a self affirmation, and sometimes I was using
yeah,
that as an affirmation for another person. But I've learned over time it is fine. At the end of the day, none of us are going to die.
yeah,
We're trying to
yeah,
work together towards the common good, and you can't lose faith in that, and you can't lose sight of that faith.
yeah.
That part is probably really poignant too, is that you have to keep the faith, but you also have to keep sight of that faith and that you have it and keep it in your heart all the time. That sounds a little hokey, but it's also true.
Yeah, hokey and false don't have to be together. Hokey can be true, right? And I think that,
They can be.
you know, yeah, I think that, one of the things that, leaders, aspiring leaders, or people cultivating the craft, sometimes modeling some of that is fine. And that faith is something that can help guide us in some of those moments. Because
Mhm.
sometimes, like, we just need to hear it, we need to see it, we need to see other people who are
Right.
carrying a similar burden and still going because of that sentiment and that truth. So that's big time. Which brings me to another question. So we have a lot of folks that are listening to this, and they're always thinking about how can I get better. So my question for you is, what advice or recommendations would you give to other practitioners or leaders in the space around ongoing professional development and how to just get better at their craft in general?
I think for anything, you have to remember that you are always a lifelong learner. The moment you think you've learned everything, you will be proven disparately, not desperately, but disparately wrong. So it's best to continue on in that faith. Okay, I don't know everything. Maybe somebody else does have another idea. And so that leads to that being open, and the open concept of understanding from all perspectives, because not every idea works for every person, because everybody is an individual. And we talk about that IEP all the time. We throw that word around, individuality, but it means just as much in terms of professional development as it does in terms of planning students' livelihoods for the future. We got to make sure that we're looking at our clientele and figuring out what everybody needs. So, needs assessments, and then based off of those needs assessments, where do you want to go? You mentioned, counseling. Uh, my chosen theory to work from, our framework, is William Glasser's choice therapy, reality therapy choice theory. And so choice theory is it's a lot like what Dr. Phil does, although I'm not really a huge fan of Dr. Phil. He's too
Sure.
harsh in it, but that, well, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Well, what are you doing? Is that getting you where you want to go? Well, why are you
Yeah.
doing it? And it's a little too harsh and abrasive, but the whole concept is there of choice theory. Like, what do you want? What are you doing to get what you want? And if you
Yeah.
keep that in mind, then that theory kind of works for all frames of life. And like, my teacher was really right. He said, when I decided to stop mocking God, and when I did, I learned all the things I needed to know. And then now I'm an effective administrator, or at least I hope I am. Because I'm not perfect. I don't have all of the answers. That, I think admitting that is what makes me so relatable to other people and why they wanted me to be a leader. No, I don't know everything. I don't claim to. But there's a thing called in Alabama, we like to talk about peeing contests. I'm not a person to
Okay.
enter a peeing contest. I know I can win the peeing contest, so I don't have to enter it. But
Yeah.
I still know that I'm a lifelong learner, and I'm going to be open. I'm going to be receptive to listening. I think if you take that whole, oh, well, I know more than you do out of the equation, and you're doing your needs assessments, and you realize that, hey, I've got to be open to whatever anybody might need, then you make progress. That's what really makes the difference. I
That's
will also
fantastic.
say, if you're looking for a model or a framework, I can't recommend enough training and anything that you can learn. Now, of course, I divulged nothing here that is just totally poignant or novel. But if you go back to the regulations, you read those IDEA regs, you read your code, you know those things. If you've gone back and done any other learning, I would say let it be about reading, because if you can get, and really by reading, I actually mean written expression, but the
Yeah.
two are tied together. You learn how to speak first, then you learn how to, well, you learn how to non-verbally communicate first, then verbal communication, and then you're able to write it. Well, if you can write about something, then you've really learned knowledge. That's the true
Yeah.
test to me, because it's the synthesis of all learning. So looking at those things and how to work with them through response to instruction, anything about RTI at work, all of those things with Mike Mattos, I'm a huge fan of all of his pieces, because it's very much driven in reality therapy, choice theory. This is, what do you want? What are you doing to get what you want? Let's focus on this. Let's tack this, and then let's go to this. Very pragmatic.
Yeah. There's something that's very empowering about that too, that realization that if this isn't the results I want, I can own putting myself in a spot, getting into courses, reading content
Oh,
that
yeah.
can maybe change the outcomes of where I am.
Oh,
And so that's
sure.
that's very empowering. And also, I'll say this: I don't live in Alabama. I live in Florida, and we don't call it peeing contest, but we do call it something similar. And so I think you might have made
Correct.
maybe they, but I know that term, and I know that expression, and it's wildly popular in our state too. So well, let me do this. For the sake of time, I want to ask you just one more question, and
Okay.
it's something that I ask all of our folks, and it's this: if you could inspire our listeners to take one action for making exceptional connections, what would you suggest?
I think if they're just going to take one action, I would say self-care. I've
Mm,
learned over the years that if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. So nothing you do, nothing you know will help anybody else if you haven't first helped yourself. And that may sound trite, but I have been in situations where I've almost let the work kill me,
yeah,
because I've gotten so stressed out over it. And I think everybody has been there, but not everybody talks about it. And so that whole, and I'm getting chill bumps as I'm saying this, because it's truth, and it's what I'm supposed to say. Nobody talks about how hard the work is. Yes, it's gratifying, but it is still hard. And
yeah,
that part is surmountable, but it can seem very insurmountable. So you have to get appropriate sleep. You can't help another student, you can't help another teacher if you're not getting the appropriate rest in for your body, because your body will make you rest eventually.
yeah, yeah.
And so to be
Those
effective
are
for
some
others, you
great
have to be effective yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I can relate to that. I think that's some good wisdom. Uh, well, Charla, thank you so much for coming and sharing
Oh,
some
you're very
time with
welcome.
us
Thank y'all.
right from your Spedivan. Yeah.
Yes.
We appreciate the work that you're doing, the advice and wisdom you shared today, and kudos to leveraging both the rest and the work that allows you to do so many wonderful things across the state. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you all at RoboKind. We appreciate y'all.
That wraps up this episode of Exceptional Minds with RoboKind. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation and found inspiration to bring back to your own learning community. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd also love to connect with you on social media, so follow RoboKind for more resources and updates on inclusive education. Until next time, keep supporting and celebrating every learner, and remember, together we can empower exceptional minds.